All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Emil Chuck. I'm the Director of Advising Services for the Health Professional Student Association, the publishers of the Student Doctor Network. Welcome to our video interview with one of our 2025 Health Professional Student Association Advisors of the Year, Graham Greer. This interview was recorded on May 14th, 2025. Graham serves as the Senior Academic Advisor for the Masters of Public Health program at the University of Missouri-Columbia, housed within the College of Health Sciences in beautiful downtown Columbia, Missouri. He earned his Bachelor of Arts in Psychology and Sociology from Columbia College in 2004 and has spent more than 15 years working in higher education, serving as a program coordinator and an academic advisor. Graham began advising for the Masters of Public Health program in 2019 and has greatly enjoyed working with graduate public health students whose dedication to improving the lives of others inspires him daily. So thank you so much for joining us. I'll say Graham, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely. Yes, that's always my preference.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Let's start off. We just have a very brief set of questions. So let's just start off at the top. Tell us about yourself and your journey to become a professional and, in this case, a pre-health advisor.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, I graduated from Columbia College in 2004. And then shortly after that, I went to work for them as an administrative assistant for their online program. And I did that job for about a year, a little more than a year. And then I became an academic advisor working there. And I worked as an academic advisor for several years, about 6 years for their online program, advising for any of their programs that were online. So had, undergraduate majors and just about every program that the college offered. And then I accepted a position as the academic advising specialist. So it was my job to create documentation for all the different academic advisors at the college and to send out communications. And I managed the training for the academic advisors. So I got to meet advisors from all over the country, really, because they have quite a few satellite campuses across the states. And that was a really great learning experience. I really enjoyed training and getting to work with all of these different advisors. But I really did miss working with the students. That's really my favorite part of the job, being an advisor. And then I took a position as program coordinator and moved out to Northern California to open a new location for the college. And I stayed there for a year in Chico, California, which was, quite a change from living in Missouri. But it was really fun. And then when I left Columbia College, shortly after that, I came to Mizzou, the University of Missouri. We call it Mizzou here. And in 2019, the fall semester, I started advising for the graduate public health program. And as you might have guessed, that was right before the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic. So that was quite a learning experience for me to start working with a bunch of public health professionals right before a global pandemic. It was a strange time for the college, and a lot of us went home and worked from home for about a year and a half. And then we all got to come back to campus when, things got kind of back in the swing of normal campus life. But yeah, I've been here since September of 19, serving as the advisor for our graduate programs in public health and our various graduate certificates in public health and epidemiology. Yeah.
Sure, thanks. Let's talk a little bit about academic advising in general, since I think a lot of people who are, sort of immersed in an academic environment may not be as familiar with what it takes to be trained up as an academic advisor. And so you mentioned a little bit about that just now. So talk to me a little bit about what are some of the things that academic advisors do in your position, since you're not coming from a faculty side, you're coming from a staff side.
That's right. Yeah, good question. So yeah, different departments and programs may have different types of advisors, and a lot of times students are familiar with having a faculty advisor, and we have faculty advisors for our graduate public health students in this program. We also have myself as an academic advisor. It's my job to help students manage their course load, make sure that they're scheduling the right classes to meet degree requirements. I'm a bit of a degree technician, so it's my job to know the requirements for all of our programs really well, and to make sure that students are taking classes in the right sequence so that they're getting in their prerequisites, before, the courses that rely on the information in those prerequisite classes. I host orientations for students 3 times a year. So we have quite a few online students and an on-campus cohort that goes through the program together starting in the fall. So I host online orientations. Everybody's familiar with Zoom these days for our online students. And then I also do an in-person orientation for that fall cohort when they're coming in at the start of the semester. And, a big part of the job of an academic advisor is to be kind of a resource hub. So, being able to field questions from students about lots of different topics, but not necessarily being an expert on all of those topics, knowing where to find those resources is really important. So I always tell students, during their first meeting with me that I'm a good place to start. Even if I don't know the answer, I'll know where to find the answer for them, hopefully.
Before I go to some of the other questions, how is academic advising organized then? Are you given like a certain number of students online as well as in person, or is it at like a pre-major level, or if they or since they're housed in your college? It depends. I just want to get a sense, since as you know, how you get assigned, as it were, to a student to be your advisor is so different depending on what school you go to.
Absolutely. Good question. And there are a lot of different models. So I'm the one and only academic advisor for the graduate public health program. And that's graduate students only that are in our master's degree program. So I handle the full caseload, whether that's 200 students or 400 students or however many that may be. I'm their sole academic advisor. Right now, that's somewhere between 200 and 300 students. So it's not an unmanageable caseload. It's actually a pretty ideal number of students for an academic advisor to have assigned to them. For undergraduate advising, it's a pretty different model. You mentioned the College of Health Sciences, which is the overall college that our department is housed within. They have a centralized model of advising for their undergraduate students. So once students have declared their major, if it's any of the various degree programs within the College of Health Sciences, their advisor is assigned to them amongst a group of undergraduate academic advisors. And I've had both kinds of positions. As I mentioned, the previous college that I worked for, I advised for all kinds of different majors, whether that was history or psychology or business. You were assigned a caseload of advisees and had to be an expert on all of those programs. Now it's a little bit simpler for me being a graduate advisor and only advising public health students. So,
okay. Let me go to my second question here. This is your chance to pitch on behalf of the graduate program. Tell us a little bit more about this master's program. I guess I remembered seeing it was listed as master's program in veterinary public health. I know it goes under a different number of names, but just tell us in terms of the marketing pitch, how does this program really help people who want to become future veterinarians?
Sure. So we have a master in public health that has 2 different emphasis areas or tracks, you might say, that students can choose from. One, as you mentioned, is veterinary public health. The other one is health promotion and policy, which tends to be the larger group of students. But our veterinary public health program has grown quite a bit in the past few years because it's a bit of a unique program. If you search online for veterinary public health programs, you won't find a whole lot of colleges and universities that offer a master's program in this. So one way to think about our veterinary public health program is it's more of a One Health model. So students are really looking across the whole gamut of public health issues. So they're looking at zoonotic diseases. They're learning quite a bit about epidemiology. They're learning quite a bit about environmental factors and how those affect human health, emergency preparedness, veterinary public health policy coursework. So it's really a holistic approach to public health. Whereas our health promotion and policy track, as the name implies, is more focused on policy. And a lot of those students in that program will go on to work in local health departments. They may become policy advocates. They may work for a nonprofit. They may become epidemiologists. So our students go on to do quite a few different things. Public health is a very interdisciplinary field, as you might imagine. So, you've got some social and behavioral sciences in there. You've got some biology. You've got really quite a bit of a range of topics in public health. For students in the veterinary public health program, sometimes they're doing a dual degree program with us. So they may be also in our College of Veterinary Medicine and pursuing their Doctor of Vet Medicine while they're doing our MPH program. Or they may be doing an MPH in between a bachelor's degree program that they've completed before going on to a DVM program. DVM programs can be very competitive to get into. So sometimes students are looking at getting a master's degree in public health to really increase their chances of getting into a DVM program on down the road. I work with quite a bit of students who have applied multiple times to DVM programs, not been successful, and have decided to kind of bulk up their resume by getting a master's degree before their next cycle of applications. The same is true for medical students. I've worked with quite a few students who are getting their MD concurrently with our MPH, or who have applied to MD programs and have not yet been accepted. So they're going to do an MPH in the meantime before going on to a School of Medicine program.
Are there things that you like to talk to students about, especially as they're doing a transition from traditional undergraduate work to more graduate coursework? Since you have sort of you have a foot in both of these camps, or have had one. What are some of the things that you would advise students who are undertaking graduate coursework? What should they expect that's a little bit different from what they might have been used to in undergrad?
Sure. One, I would say, is the course load is going to be a little bit different than what students are used to as an undergraduate student. Sometimes I'll have students coming into our master's program that are planning on taking 15 credit hours of graduate coursework in a semester. And that's a lot different than taking 15 credits as an undergraduate. So I talk to them about course expectations, what kind of course load, workload per course they can expect to have. And generally, I recommend students do 9 credit hours a semester. If they're in a real hurry to finish the program more quickly, then maybe we'll bump it up to 12. But usually students can expect their master's degree to take a full 2 academic years. And that generally means 9 credit hours during fall and spring semesters, and then maybe 1 or 2 courses over the summer, depending on what their plans are for that. So that's one big difference. The other thing that I really like to talk to students about early on in the program is whether they want to do a thesis option, or if they want to plan on just taking a capstone course at the end of their program. Students that have the goal of getting into a PhD program after completing their master's degree, or maybe a DRPH, or some kind of additional schooling after their master's program, will often elect to do a thesis. But that's not something you can really slap together last minute. It requires quite a bit of planning, as I'm sure you know. So there's a thesis committee and a thesis advisor, and there's a lot of preparation that goes into doing a thesis for students. So that's something I like to talk to them about pretty early on. Likewise for the internship requirement, which is one of the requirements in our master's program. Students have a lot of questions about the internship, so they often ask about that in that initial meeting. But if they don't, I like to chat with them about that as well. So
let me go ahead and ask the explicit question exactly. And I know I say, do your students find opportunities to click for these opportunities? What are the structures to help them find those opportunities that obviously you would know as an advisor?
Sure. So, being a large university, we have quite a few opportunities for students here in Columbia, Missouri. We have a lot of partnerships with, health departments, clinics. There are really a lot of different things that students can do for their internships. The biggest challenge for me and for some of our students is for the online students who may not be in the state of Missouri, helping them find internship opportunities. Right now, particularly, is a challenge for students to find internships, as funding for various programs is being cut and there are just fewer opportunities. So we're pretty lenient about the timing of a student's internship, where it occurs in the program, as long as it's prior to their capstone course. I want to make sure that students have a handful of courses already completed before they get into their internship. So we want them to have already taken their statistics class and their basic, principles of epidemiology and maybe a research class and things like that before they get into their internship. But aside from those prerequisite classes, we can be pretty flexible on when the student does their internship. But that requires some planning and some coordination and quite a bit of back and forth between the student and I. We also have an internship coordinator for our program who is faculty, and she helps the students track down opportunities. If they're an online student, it might be, hey, have you tried this location that's close to you? Have you gone to the USDA website? Have you checked with, CDC opportunities, things like that. So that's one of the big pieces in our program that requires some coordination, with the students and some planning. Otherwise, they can kind of just sign up for their courses as I give them a course plan, and they can expect to follow that roadmap from first semester through graduation. But the internship and the thesis require quite a bit of coordination.
And this is both for the public health program as well as the health promotion and policy program.
That's right. Yeah. So both of those require an internship, and they may be in very different types of locations. So students in our veterinary public health track may volunteer to work at a vet clinic, or they can do a lot of different kinds of things. I've seen students, do a lot of really creative things for their internship. I like to talk to students about what their career plans and goals are. What are the things that most interest them in the field of public health? Because like I mentioned, it's such a broad field. Public health can mean a lot of different things to different students. So I like to pick their brain a little bit and find out what it is that they're most interested in public health before I just send them off on their way to go do an internship. I want to make sure we're finding a good fit for them.
Sort of along the same lines, I know we're just glancing a little bit into characteristics ideal for students. So obviously, what other things certainly stand out to you in terms of students that have taken advantage of many of these opportunities? Obviously, hopefully they're accountable. They let you know what's going on in their programs and or projects and so forth.
Yeah, that's right. That's a great point. So don't hide mistakes from your advisor. He or she is there to help you through the program. And, as we have all learned, mistakes don't just go away when you ignore them. It's best to address them as quickly as possible. So yes, responsibility is certainly a good one. We want to develop those close relationships with students so we can be someone that they can come to, for help. That's what I'm here for, and it's a big part of my job. But I work with a lot of different types of students. So I mentioned we have both an on-campus cohort and a lot of online students, and they tend to be very different types of students who are different places in their life. So our on-campus cohort tends to be students who are coming right out of an undergraduate program, or international students. We have quite a few international students who come from all over the place to do our program here on campus. And that's very different from the group of online students that I typically advise. They tend to be working adults who have already established a career and maybe are coming to get some additional credentials. Maybe it's not even their first master's degree. Maybe they're adding in another master's degree, and they've already been, working in a field and have, a master's degree in public affairs, or I've worked with doctors, lawyers, veterinarians, quite a few different folks who are just adding on credentials, have taken an interest in public health, or want to make a career change. So they can be quite a different group of students to work with. But yeah, mostly I really, look for like I said, I want to develop a good relationship with the students because I want to know what's important for them. I don't want this to be a prescriptive relationship where I'm telling the student what to do and they're following orders. That's not the ideal advisor-advisee relationship, in my opinion. So one example of that would be when it comes to elective classes. We have room for a couple of electives in the program, but I don't want to just give the student a list of course options and then say, go pick and sign up for whatever you want. I want to ask them, like I was saying earlier about the internship, what are you most interested in? What do you want to have some more experience with? What do you want to do with your career in public health? And sometimes students don't know the answers to those questions, and that's okay. That's why I like to save back those electives for later on in the program. You don't really want to start taking elective classes your first semester. You want to get those foundational courses in those first couple of semesters, that first year in the program, so that you're exposed to all these different areas in public health. And then you can start deciding, oh, I really liked that epidemiology course I took. I want to get some more experience in epidemiology, or it's the social and the behavioral science aspect of public health that I really like. So are there any social work courses that I could take as an elective? Those kinds of things. I'm sorry, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. No, definitely. Hopefully it gives anyone an idea about what those differences really are. I know we'll talk a little bit about online students and some of the challenges that they have. How much information do you find out about students who are online, or what do you want them to tell you, especially if they're struggling? To what extent should they share that type of information with other people who are their advisors if they're online students?
Yeah, absolutely. Good question. So this is one of the reasons I really like Zoom meetings. So for online students, it can be more difficult to establish a good connection to the university. So I want to see that student face to face as often as possible, as often as they have time for. I always tell students in that first meeting that I have with them that I would like to meet with them every semester, but that it's up to them how frequently they want to meet with me. Now, if they're struggling and I'm seeing flags raised by their instructors about a student who's gone MIA in a course, then I'm going to get in touch with that student as quickly as I can to make sure that they know about what their options are and what resources are available. But, if a student meets with me once and then I don't hear from them again for a year, or as they're getting close to graduation, then I don't know exactly what it is that they might need from me. And that's fine for some students. Like I said, some of the online students especially are working adults who have family commitments and they have a full-time job and they are kind of doing this part-time on the side. And, maybe they don't need as much assistance from an advisor. Maybe they're an old pro at higher education and they already know the ropes, but some students don't. So I want them to know about, hey, we have online tutoring that's available to you 24/7. A lot of students don't think about that kind of thing. Or as an online student, they may not be thinking about our library resources. We've got a pretty amazing, not just on-campus library, but online resource for our students. They can chat with librarians live, they can check out books, they can do a lot of stuff through our library as an online student. The list goes on,
Yeah. Well, those are really good points for anybody who's online. At least understanding what this whole package of resources are available, and again, that's why you're there. Mm-hmm. I do want to get one little small question about the collaboration that you have with faculty, especially because you kind of hinted at this. Like, how often do you meet with faculty, whether they are quote problem, or maybe marginal problem students or whatever? Mm-hmm. Talk to me about what that relationship is like with faculty members.
Yeah, frequently. So I'm, housed in, our department that has its own floor of the building. And our faculty, our full-time faculty, all have offices here. So I see them and get to interact with them quite a bit. We have monthly department meetings with the staff and the faculty so that we get to talk to each other. And I serve on quite a few committees as well, so that I get to talk with those faculty who are, subject matter experts, and I'm kind of a more curricular expert. So like I'm on the curriculum committee, for instance. So there's a lot of collaboration between myself and the faculty when it comes to those kind of big picture things about the program's requirements and curriculum and individual courses and things like that. And then when it comes to students, faculty reach out to me in a lot of different ways. It might be just them, coming down the hall to my office to chat with me about a particular student. It might be one of the pieces of software that we use where faculty can raise a flag about a student that they're concerned with, who's gone MIA or who might be struggling. They might just shoot me an email. Graham, have you heard from so-and-so? So there's a lot of different ways that faculty can reach out to me. But yeah, we definitely collaborate quite a bit. And I'm friends with some of the faculty. I've been here for more than 5.5 years at this point. So I've made friends with some of our faculty. Public health faculty are some great folks. You don't go into this field to get rich. So they tend to be people that want to help others. And that's why I really like public health so much, both the faculty and the students, because it's really just a discipline that's full of good people that want to do good for other people. So it's a pretty supportive bunch.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, I agree from my experience with similar faculty members over the years too. So yes, thanks for sharing that. And I'm glad, as I said, I want to make sure that we had that type of angle. Certainly many of your peers who are also academic advisors find themselves, or even some of your faculty, find themselves just, by chance mentoring future physicians, veterinarians, other health professionals. From your experience, what sort of advice would you give fellow peers, however you wish to broadly define it, who want to or find themselves mentoring future physicians?
Sure. For me, authenticity is number one. There's a tendency in a lot of fields to make sure that you're always appearing professional and keep those professional boundaries between yourself and your client or your student or whatever that relationship may be. And certainly I do that to a certain extent, but I also want students to know who I am as a person, what's important to me as a person, and that what I care most about is what's important for them as far as, what they want to get out of this program and what they want to do with their life. I greatly enjoy my job because what I get to do every single day is help people achieve something they want to do. And that's a pretty great job description, right? As an academic advisor, you can't really ask for more than that. I won't say that it's all, puppies and rainbows all the time. But, as far as jobs go, it's a pretty great job to be able to help people do something that they really want to do. You're not forcing anything on people. You're helping people achieve goals that, they really want to achieve. So that's pretty cool. So that's one of the most important things for me as an advisor is just developing an authentic, real relationship with my advisees. And you might think, well, how can you do that with 200, 300, 400 students? Just be yourself in every interaction that you have with students. But it's important to be an expert on what you need to be an expert on. So I can't just chat with students and say, how are you doing today? Are you having a good day? I have to make sure that I know the program requirements really well, that I know our resources for students really well, that I'm very, very familiar with policy. I don't like putting students on probation and talking to them about academic probation. No advisor enjoys that part of the job, but it's really important that I know what all of those policies are and that I let students know about them ahead of time. One of the instructors that I had when I was a student many years ago, his philosophy on teaching had a very big impact on me. In a nutshell, I won't remember it verbatim, but what he said in a nutshell was that he wasn't trying to be the sage on the stage who got automatic respect from students. You don't respect someone because of their credentials. He wanted to earn the respect every time he stepped into a classroom. And I thought that was a great philosophy for someone with a PhD and, lots of other credentials going back decades to have. That kind of humility is, I think, very important to have in your relationship with students and really just anybody in your professional and personal life. So that's something that I try to emulate as well. I want to make sure that I come into every meeting prepared. I don't just, log on for a Zoom meeting not knowing what this upcoming meeting is going to be about. When students schedule appointments with me, I ask them to leave some notes on what what we're going to be talking about that day so that I can be prepared. And, I'll allow walk-in meetings, that's fine. But I really want to be well prepared for every meeting that I have with students so that I can, if need be, I can refresh my memory on, what's the withdrawal policy or deadline, or where can I find a good resource for the student when it comes to X, Y, and Z. I want to make sure that when they come to me, they know they're going to get answers during that meeting or shortly afterward once I've had a chance to follow up. That's really important for me. I want there to be some structure and some expertise that they can rely on anytime they meet with me.
So before I get to the last question, so basically an ideal appointment or meeting with the student, the student should come in at least with a little bit of their own preparation too, at least to try to help you guide your conversations with them, right?
Absolutely. I spend the first hour of my, every day, if I have any student appointments that day, I spend that first hour. I don't let students schedule appointments with me at 8 o'clock. I make them wait until at least 9 o'clock because I want to have that first hour blocked off to prep for any meetings that I may have that day. So yeah, I really they don't always do it, but I like for students to leave notes for me about what this meeting is going to be about, so that I know what I need to prepare. And and if it's the first time I'm meeting with a student, then I have an agenda already in mind. I'm going to cover, what classes they're going to take their first semester. We're going to talk about, hey, you've got this internship requirement coming up about a year from now. Let's talk a little bit about what to expect there. I'm going to make sure that I hit on certain topics during those initial meetings. But if it's an appointment with a student who's been in the program for a little while, I want a little bit of a heads up so that I know what to expect for that meeting.
All right. Sounds great. I know we have to wrap up really soon, but I'm giving you a wonderful chance. I don't know how many times you get interviewed or anyone gets interviewed in their lives, but I do want to give this question about what question you wished I had been able to ask you, and what would your answer be to that question?
That might be actually the toughest question you've asked me so far today, because I've kind of shoehorned in a lot of the topics that I really wanted to touch on today. It would probably be something similar to what I just talked about, actually. What's my favorite thing about advising public health students? And it would be what I've talked about already. They're in this field for altruistic reasons. They tend to be really good people who want to help other people. And what I get to do is pretty cool. I get to advise students and help them achieve something that's a goal of theirs. I'm sorry, I can't come up with a better question on the spot. Aside from that, yeah.
Well, we definitely appreciate your sharing your time and your knowledge and wisdom with us today. Thank you and congratulations on being named one of our advisors of 2025. And thank you. If definitely let us know if we can help you more. Okay.
Thanks, Emil. It's been a pleasure. Yeah, I'm very honored by this.
Sure, no problem. I'm going to end the recording and thank you so much.
Thanks.